So these will be the notes and examples for section 1.1 points, lines, and planes. Currently, you are seeing the learning targets for this section. So you will see that there are several learning targets for this particular section, and it mostly deals with vocabulary. So our first vocabulary word is point. It has no dimension and is usually represented by a small dot. So this is our most basic geometric object. It is a point. You will see a capital letter beside them, and when you name it, you actually write out the word point and whatever capital letter is with it. So once again, capital letters will name points. So this is point A. Most of you already know what a line is. It extends in one direction, usually represented by a straight line with two arrowheads. And this indicates that it keeps going forever in both directions. Now, there are multiple ways to name a line. So there can be infinitely many points on the line. Sometimes you'll see a lowercase or other letter at the end of a line. So we could call this line and then the lowercase letter at the end. So this is line N. Most of the time, though, you will see it named using the line symbol. So the line symbol looks like a line, and then you always use any 2 points, not 1, not 3, not 5. It only takes 2. So you pick any 2 points from the line to name it. So we could call it line AB. We could call this line BC. We could call this line AC. And you don't necessarily have to go from left to right. You can turn it around and go the other way and call it line CA, CB, and BA. So you can use any 2 points, never more, never less, any 2 points, and then put that line symbol over the top. The next one is a line segment or just a segment. This is actually a piece of a line. So we're going to cut out a piece of our previous line. Don't want to do that. We're going to cut out a piece of our previous line. It consists of endpoints. So we have a definite start and we have a definite stop with nothing in between. So a line segment is a piece of a line and it has 2 endpoints. When you want to name it using symbols, we use a bar with no arrows, and then you simply name the 2 endpoints. And it doesn't matter whether you go from left to right or right to left, it's the same segment. So a line has arrows, a segment has endpoints. Both of them use 2 points to name it. It can be any 2 points for the line, but it is the end points. So the key to this is we have end points. So it has a definite ending on each side. Then we have our last vocabulary word related to a part of a line, and this is array, and this one is the one that people tend to have the most difficulty. It only has 1 endpoint. We call that the initial point, and then it is all the points on one side of the point. You might want to think about this in one direction instead of side. So we have 1 endpoint and then all the points in one direction. Now you have to be careful with this because there are rays that can look very similar to each other in their labeling, but be completely different objects. So I have 2 rays drawn here. The first one is a ray. It starts at A and it goes in the direction of B, and you name it by putting the arrow symbol over the top. Now, so this is this first one. But to name this ray, you have to be careful. It is not the same name. It is not the same ray. When you're naming a ray, you always start with where it ends and where it goes, and you always put an arrow that has an arrowhead on the right side. So the ray AB starts at A and goes in the direction of B, and the ray BA starts at B and goes in the direction of A. You will always name with an arrow that goes to the right, and you go with the start and then the direction. So where does it start and what direction is it going in? So you have to tell me where it starts and then any point in the direction it is going. So lines go in both directions, segments have 2 endpoints, and array has 1 endpoint and goes in one direction. So now that we know about points, lines, and rays, we're going to go with our next objects. So we have collinear. So co is with, linear is on line, and the key to this is that they lie on the same line. So I'm going to draw a couple of lines and put some points on here. So we have A, B, C, and D. Points A, B, and C are collinear. Points A, B, and D are non-collinear. So because point D is not on the same line with A and B are on the same line, B and D are on the same line, but all 3 of them are not on the same line, we get this non-collinear. So collinear is together on the same line. Non-collinear is when they're not all on the same line. A plane is something that extends in 2 dimensions and is usually represented by a shape that looks like a tabletop. The most basic plane that we will draw is a 3-sided plane. So we have 3 sides, and we name it with the points at the corners. So we would call this plane, and then you simply pick any ending point and name all of the points. So this is plane CAB. Coplanar is when they lie on the same plane. So from my previous picture, points A, B, and C are coplanar. If I put a point D in it, it is also coplanar. And then if I put some random point outside, E is non-coplanar. So earlier we talked about array. Now we're going to get opposite rays. Notice the plural. So these 2 have the same endpoint. So we have one common endpoint, and they go in different directions. So if one goes up to the right, the other one goes down to the left. So this is my endpoint. This is one direction. This is the other direction. So rays AB, and the other one also starts at A and goes in C, are opposite rays. And opposite rays will always form a line. So opposite rays will always form a line. The next two vocabulary words are related to each other: intersect and intersection. So when two or more figures have one or more points in common, they are going to intersect. So line AB intersects line XY, and the intersection is our information they have in common. So this point where they both meet, let's call that Z, is our intersection. Okay, now that we have our vocabulary, we're going to start looking at our examples. So we have this picture of a set of intersecting lines, and we're going to answer with true or false. So first thing is I have two odd problems that both work with line M. So this is line M. And then there are two more problems that talk about line L. So this is line L. So we're going to work through the odds, and then I'm going to talk about the evens. So in our first question, they want to know if point X is on line M. So here is our point X. It is on that line M. So this one is true. The next one wants to know about point W. So here's point W. It's on a different line. So our point W on line M is false. For the next one, we're asked about point V, and we're asked if it is on line L. So there's our line L that we have highlighted there, and this one is true. And our last question wants to know about point Y. Y is a special point. It is our intersection point. It is actually on both of our lines, so this is true. In the next set of questions, we have two questions that talk about collinear, and then we have two questions that talk about coplanar. So collinear is when they're on the same line. So if I look at X, I look at Y, and I look at Z, since they are all on line M, this one is true. The other one that is collinear, is looking at V, Y, and X. V and Y are on the same line, X and Y are on the same line, but there is not one line with all three of them. So this one is false. These are non-collinears. And then we get to the one about coplanar. And the challenge with this one is there is not a plane drawn here, since they're all in this same space. This is our plane, and everything in our picture is on that plane. So both of these will be true. Unless you have a three-dimensional object drawn out for you, it's just a flat object, then they will be coplanar. So it's only when we're looking at a three-dimensional object that we have to be careful. Before we go on, I do want you to be careful, because is point B on ray Y W. You have to be careful. So here's our V, but our ray, YW, starts at Y and goes in the direction of W. So since our V is not in that same direction, this one is false. You also have to be careful when we're looking at segments. So is point X on segment YZ? So when you look at that segment YZ, it just goes from Y to Z and doesn't contain anything else. So that one is also false. So be careful that you pay attention to starting and stopping and what direction they go in. So for the next one, we are going to be working with this collinear. So we're looking to see that they're on the same line. So this is just a matter of finding the line and naming the additional point. So in problem 13, we have B, we have E. So we're working with this line, and our third point on that line is H. For problem 14, we're looking at F and H. So this is our line, and our third point on that line is G. For problem 15, we're working with D and G. So this is our line, and the third point on that line is A. And problem 16, we're working with A and C. So now we have our line, and the third point on that is B. So that's how simple it is to locate collinears. Locate the 2 points to get your line, and then simply name the third point that's on that same line. The next one, we're going to be working with coplanar. So this is our same plane. Now there are multiple planes in this particular figure. We have the front, so our front plane. We have the back. We have our left. And we have our right. And then, of course, we have our top. Our top. And the bottom. So there are 6 planes. This is a matter of locating which plane our points are on. So when we look at the first question, we have M, N, and O. These are all on the bottom. So our third corner on the bottom is point P, is our fourth corner. The next one, we're going with M, N, and R. So this is the front, and our fourth corner of the front is Q. For the next one, we're working with T, Q, and M. So this is the left side, and our fourth corner is P. And then our last one is T, Q, and R. These are on the top, and the fourth corner at the top is S. So figure out which section it's on, front, back, left, right, top, or bottom, and simply name the fourth corner. Then we get to this set. This set of questions is going to use our vocabulary to answer them. I'm going to apologize for the fast flipping that I'm going to end up doing as we go through these. So this first one is collinear points, points that lie. And when we go back to our notes, collinear points are points that lie on the same line. So these lie on the same line. The next one is coplanar, and this one is similar. These lie on the same plane. So the next one is our definition of segment. We have a segment XY. It consists of an endpoints X and Y and all the points of the line XY that lie. So we're going to go back to our vocabulary for a segment, and it's all of the points on the line that are between them. So the key to this is the them. The them that we're referring to are the endpoints. So when we look at this fill in the blank, it's all of the points that lie between X and Y. The next one is array. So it consists of initial point M and all of the points that lie on the line. So this one, we have our initial point, and it's all the points that lie in the direction of N. So if it starts at M, it's going to go in the direction of N. So we talked about collinear in 29. We have collinear again in 33, and it's the same definition whether you're talking about points or rays or segments. Any two objects are collinear if they lie on the same line. Opposite rays. So when we go back to opposite rays share the same endpoint but go in not just different but opposite directions. So they have the common endpoint P, but Q and T are on opposite sides. Okay, so the next one wants us to explain the difference between the ray B, C. So that's what it looks like. It starts at B and it goes in the direction of C. And the ray C, B. So here's the difference. They have different initial points. So BC starts at B and goes toward C, and CB starts at C and goes toward B. One more set of examples, and we're going to do a little drawing. So the first one we're going to draw is 3 collinear points, and then we're going to label them A, B, and C. So for this first drawing, collinear means I need a line, and I need to put those 3 points on the line, and it doesn't matter what order I put them on as long as they're all on the same line. If I was asked to do non-collinear points, I would make sure I drew 3 points that could not be connected with a line. Next one. We're told to draw these 2 lines intersecting, and we're going to label that intersection with R. So for the second one here, we're going to draw our 2 lines intersecting. We're going to label one of them with M and N. We're going to label the other one with P and Q, and the point where they cross over, we label it with R. The next one, I need coplanar. So I need to start out with a plane. So it can have our boundaries. And I need to point the points X, Y, and Z in it or on it. So I can label them at the vertices. I can put them at the line. I can put them randomly inside. So as long as the points that I'm working with are in or on the plane, then we are coplanar. If we were asked for non-coplanar, then at least one of the points has to be outside of the plane, either not on it or not in it. And our last one is opposite rays. So they both start at J. So I have my point J, and they're going to go in opposite directions. So they end up creating a line. So K is on one side of J, and C is on the other side. Make sure you refer to these as you're working through your notes or working through your practice problems and slips.